All right, welcome to Module 2-3 in Python Basics, and in this module we're going to look at list comprehensions, methods, and functions. And so we're starting to get a little bit more advanced here with some of the Python skills we're going to learn. So list comprehensions. List comprehensions are a concise way to create lists. It can be faster to create a list this way than a for loop. And the syntax or the code involved can be a little bit easier to read once you get used to it. Now, at first, it can be a little bit more complicated, but once you do some practice with list comprehensions, you can see that it's just more concise code that will run faster to create a list. Now, you're going to see some similarities to the for loop code structure. Not exactly the same, but we're going to see that same keyword for something in something, and then it's going to be do something if you want to. So let's review some basic list comprehension examples here. And so in this first code cell, we're going to create a list of squares for the numbers from number 0 to 9. And so we're going to start with our square brackets again. We're going to do x to the squared, so x to the second power, for x in range 10. So the numbers 0 through 9 will be the range 10, and we're going to square each of these, and that will create a new list that's going to just contain the square of each of the numbers in that range. And so let's look at this. And so the square of 0 is 0, the square of 1 is 1, 2 squared is 4, so on and so on until we get to 9, so 9 squared is 81. And so you can see that's just a little bit more simpler and concise code to create a list of squares from this numbers in range. Now, let's look at a more practical example to convert a list of temperatures from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And so we're going to start with a list of temperatures in Celsius, and now we're going to use this list comprehension to convert all of those into Fahrenheit temperatures. And so now we're starting off with this round, and so this is just rounding this number so we don't end up with a bunch of decimal points. So you don't have to do this, and if it's confusing, just leave that part off. But we're going to start with 9/5 times the temperature plus 32 for temp, and so each time it goes through the Celsius list, so in Celsius, and so we're going to go through each item in the Celsius list, do this calculation, and so each time it's going to go through, and now it's going to convert that Celsius temperature into the Fahrenheit temperature. And now we have a list of the same temperatures, but now they're in Fahrenheit instead of Celsius. And then we have a little code review block here to look into this in more detail if you'd like. So one more example of a list comprehension, but now we're going to classify cholesterol levels as high, borderline, or normal. So we have this list of cholesterol levels in milligrams per deciliter, and we're going to say they're high, borderline, or normal based on whatever that level is. So here's our list comprehension again. So cholesterol status, it's going to be high if the level is greater than 200, else. So if it's less than 200, the level is going to be borderline if it's greater than 180. So anything between 180 and 200 is going to be borderline. Else, so anything less than 180 is going to be considered normal. For level, and again, this is just a placeholder for each of the items in cholesterol levels, which is our original list here of cholesterol levels. And then we'll print the cholesterol status, so we're going to have a value of high, borderline, or normal for each of these values in the cholesterol levels list. All right, see, there we go. So borderline, 190, 205 is high, 180 is normal, 220 is high, and 170 is normal. There we go. Now we're going to look at methods. And so in Python, different data types have built-in methods which will perform some sort of operation or function on that particular Python object. And so two of the common methods that we'll see are string methods or list methods. And so when you have this string object here, there are various methods for string objects that you can manipulate that data with. And so these can be pretty useful for doing bulk tasks, just simply using that method. So let's look at some examples here. So we have patient name, Jane Doe, If we want to capitalize this name, you would just do patient name dot capitalize, and that's how you know it's a method. You just have this period dot capitalize followed by those parentheses, and that's saying capitalize whatever this string value is here. So this should capitalize Jane Doe. Now, if we use the count method, so dot count the letter E, and so how many times is the letter E in this one? So that should give us 2 here. And then now we want to use the replace method, so replace Jane Doe, so replace Doe with Smith. And so this would be an example of the replace method. And so let's run this cell and see what that looks like. So we've capitalized Jane, so Jane Doe. E appears twice, once in Jane and once in Doe. And now on this third one, using the replace method, we've replaced Doe with Smith, so now we have Jane Smith. And it's since we didn't use capitalize, it goes back to lowercase, so we still have lowercase Jane here. Now let's look at some list methods. So, and there are more methods than I'm reviewing here. These are just some examples to show you string methods and list methods. But the number of methods for each of these is definitely more substantial than what I'm going to cover here. But we're going to look at a few of them, such for list methods, we're going to look at append, sort, index, and remove. And so that's going to allow you to manipulate the data in a list, which is going to come up with the more you deal with data. So let's start with a medications list. So we have metformin, lisinopril, atorvastatin. Now if we want to add a medication, I need to start that list first or we will get an error. So we're going to use the append method to add a medication. So medications, the list name, dot append is the method, and we're going to add amlodipine. So that should put amlodipine at the end of the list because we've added that. Now if we want to sort them, that's going to sort them alphabetically. And so now we start with amlodipine, then we have atorvastatin, lisinopril, metformin. So if you want to do an alphabetical sort, you would use the sort method. Now if we want to find the index of a particular medication, so where is that? Now we didn't sort this, so this is just going to go back to the original medications list. So where is lisinopril? So that's going to be 0, 1. So that should be the first, or the 1 index, or 2, so excuse me here. So it's in the second place. So maybe that did keep that. So let's insert another code, and let's just see. Yeah, okay, so we did alter it here. So the sort list did save that. So now lisinopril 0, 1, 2 is in that third position or the second index, because remember, lists are 0 indexed. So sorry that was a little confusing. I didn't think this sort method was going to save that. I thought it would revert back, but it saved it, and so now lisinopril is in this position. Now if we want to remove something from the list, we just use the remove method here. So let's remove metformin. And now metformin has been removed from the list, so now we just have amlodipine, atorvastatin, and lisinopril. All right, that's going to do it for this video, and next we're going to jump into functions, which are an incredibly important part of Python programming.